Okay, so there's a problem, right? And this year, on March 25th of 2021, someone stole my bicycle. I bought the bicycle. I already talked about that. It's not a coincidence that on March 25th of 2017, there was issued an order for an emergency detention because it was alleged that I needed some form of mental health observation. That paperwork was stolen. The state of Texas never responded when I went through various processes to get confirmation about the authorization and why people that are mandated reporters of child abuse and fraud just refuse to acknowledge. I showed up on site with a request for assistance with reporting child abuse and fraud, including child abuse connected to forced drugging children who were being tormented by manipulation of radio frequency into a situation where they were being required to be identified as mentally ill or having some form of diagnosis for the prescription of medication in order to be kept in the custody of their parent who did not abuse them. Several years, nobody said anything. I don't know if Congress right now is engaged in a process where they are backdating stock or trying to cover their ass. And so there is information regarding legislation and dates connected to legislation that are not factually accurate in terms of the actual timeframes wherein they were alleged to have been proposed. But I know that there's something going on where there is a demographic preclusion, that there's a piece of legislation right now that specifically references people of a particular demographic. You cannot print it. You cannot actually download or print it like you can other documents. Did they use that demographic as some form of insurance for the other things I found, including portals? They're using actual people in the United States of a specific demographic as human shields. And I anticipate that what they're doing is stealing those people's biometric accounts. Why? Because they've already gone through a completely racialized and contrived sort of ritual for over 10 years where specific demographics of people have been determined to be available for some form of special treatment when it comes to other people waiving off taxes or dealing with very, very serious crimes, that they're using those people's derivatives. Just yesterday, I found a video I made about how OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, was using derivatives connected to people who were identified as being sanctioned. And my contention was they specifically and intentionally disappeared political opposition within the country and were running derivatives in connection with them under the auspices that those derivatives would be able to help them with some sort of law enforcement effort. Well, that's not really what they were doing. They were allowing certain people to be availed of the benefits of violating those other people's constitutional rights and stealing their lives. I can't tell you how many times certain members of Congress and the Senate that I contacted in presumably what was supposed to be their professional role as a member of Congress in the Senate just ended up using that to set up benchmarks on proposed legislation that's completely heinous, right? And I'm concerned that they're actually in the process of committing race based hate crimes under actual legislative oversight. That in fact, it may be the sort of thing where it's one of these matters where they're specifically using a particular demographic now because they feel like they can get away with using them based upon cases that went before the Supreme Court last year. There were several cases that went before the Supreme Court that had a particular political implication that was itself a focus as opposed to other kinds of implications that would have been able to be presented through the court and to the court, were it to have been allowed for the people who had the just cause claims to get acknowledgement and representation, or to be acknowledged for representing themselves instead of being subordinated to violations of the Constitution, where other people abuse the cover of sovereign immunity to engage them in derivative proceedings and expropriate their property in order to personally advantage them. I'm going to leave it at that, except to say I just found an article that identifies 13 tribal leaders from Nevada, 13 tribes in Nevada on March 25th of 2019, discussing their opposition to removal and transport of plutonium. That is completely contemptible. Now, perhaps when I was supposed to believe that, no, we just took your spirit. What? When we took your bike, we're taking your spirit. You just borrowed it. It wasn't yours. It wasn't your spirit. We took it back. You just borrowed it and now we're taking it back. No, what you did is you stole plutonium. You stole plutonium. And the fucked up thing is, you've already stolen uranium. How much longer do you think you're going to go with this? This isn't a ritual. This isn't some proving ceremony. You're messing with things you have no right to mess with. And if you think you're going to teach me a lesson because I busted your deal down south through the president of the Senate, you have. Congratulations. You've actually taught me very, very important lessons. And what you've taught me is that you're not going to be able to get away with your derivative schemes, right? I would advise you to cease and desist. I want my bike back. It wasn't my spirit. It was my transportation, right? And what it seems like is you stole my transportation so you can traffic people in order to smuggle nuclear weapons. There's absolutely no energy justification for plutonium. You don't use plutonium for a nuclear energy reactor. You might want to try to make some justification. Well, uranium, that's what we use for our nuclear energy. It's nuclear energy, Colleen. It's nuclear energy, Charity. You stole plutonium. You're fucking around with plutonium and you're trying to peg it to girls that aren't old enough to get their driver's permit for their own driver's license. You've been busted. You're going to need to shut this down and cease and desist. It isn't better in Spanish, but I'm about to get my Latin out on you, and I am not going to have any fucking mercy.